I will say that 2014, there was a lot of just kind of internal confidence, in the locker room. We knew we were very good. We knew we were going to be a very good football team. And I didn't want to screw that up.
By Trent Guy turns the corner. Guy breaks a tackle. Heads for the end zone. Touchdown. Henry Miller. Good. Hard charging, and he stays on his feet. Bilal Powell. How about this effort? Unbelievable run by Powell.
We're on a collision course with the national championship. The only variable is time.
And we're back. Another episode of From the Pink Seats podcast of the series of Where Are They Now? I'm here with Matt McGavick. No Jacob Lane tonight. Matt and I gave him the night off. It just so happens to be his 30th birthday, so make sure everybody gives Jacob plenty of happy birthday wishes on Twitter. I know it'll probably be about 5 days late by the time this podcast comes out, but it'll still be good. It'll still be good. I'm joined in with Matt McGavick again. Matt, how are we doing?
Doing pretty good. It's interesting having to record this intro when it's just us two knuckleheads because, we had Presley Meyer. He's going to join us with our interview with Art Carmody, but, his Wi-Fi went out. So now it's just us two. But anyways, I'm just ribbing you, Presley. We've interviewed a lot of former Louisville guys, former pros, things of that nature. We haven't interviewed a Lou Groza award winner before. So, this is always a first.
Man, that was cool. It's cool to have guys, with his pedigree that are on the show. Like you said, you just don't get an award winner on your show every once in a while. We had John Grenard, who's a current defensive lineman for the Texans on prior. I mean, just the people and the guests that we keep adding onto the show are awesome. I encourage everyone to continue to follow along as we continue to add more guests onto the show and more episodes to Where Are They Now throughout the summer. Matt, I'll let you rattle off some Art's notable achievements. I mean, the dude is an absolute stud. Any college team in the country would be blessed to have a kicker like this on their football team at some point in time.
Yeah, I mean, listen to these stats. 60 of 73 on career field goals, 253 for 255 on career extra points. Those two misses only came in his sophomore season. He ranked second in the nation in scoring among kickers in 2004 as a true freshman. At the time that he graduated from Louisville, he was third all-time in the NCAA in scoring and first among kickers. When you talk about some of the most accomplished Louisville players of all time, of course, Lamar's going to be up there, but one of the more underrated selections is Art Carmody, considering he had his name all over the Louisville record books when it comes to the kicking position.
It always makes me laugh, Matt. You get a good consistent kicker like Art, like Blanton Creque, and you start seeing them climb these record boards of most points scored here, most points scored there. So they're starting to pass up guys who are throwing all these touchdown passes and running for touchdown passes and catching touchdown passes. But, here comes a little old kicker climbing the ladder. I mean, the dude's an awesome interview. As Matt said, Lou Groza award winner in 2006, first team all Big East. I mean, absolute stud. I'm excited for you guys to listen to this one. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, follow it, and I hope you all enjoy this interview.
All right, and we are on with the man, the myth, the legend, the Card Chronicle writing guru, if you will, Art Carmody. Welcome to the From the Pink Seats podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, and we were talking earlier. I think the podcast and everything you guys are doing is great. I'm a subscriber to it. I haven't left a 5-star review. Maybe I'll do that. maybe I'll review my own episode. But you guys are great, and I think the podcast is awesome, and love hearing from former Cardinals. Is when you get done playing, Vince, you can probably talk about this. You become a huge fan of the program. So the further you get away from it, it's fun to go back and hear former players and their experiences. We were talking before the one about Jeff Brohm in the early '90s. Hearing about that program and building it up was awesome. So I'm just honored to be able to join you guys.
Yeah, that's been the cool thing for me with this whole series is being able to talk to guys like Greg and hear what their era was like, and Devon, hear what his era was like, and then moving forward with John Grenard, who I was a part of and everything, and just seeing all these transitions and seeing how much better we've gotten. It's so super cool, and just seeing the trajectory of where Jeff is going to be having this program is awesome. I'm sure it's awesome for you to see as well.
Yeah. Love it.
So, Art, what is your experience working with Jeff and Greg? Obviously, playing with Brian, but did you guys develop much of a relationship when you were actually at U of L?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Brian was my college roommate. So I lived with him for 3 years, along with another good friend of ours, Justin Dealey, who I was actually in his wedding this past weekend in Scotland. And so I got to know the Brohm family very well. Used to go over for dinners with Brian and Oscar and Donna. And Donna's the real MVP, if you ask me, and the family. But, Jeff had come on the first year that he was quarterbacks coach, was my first year there. And I remember talking to Jonathan Gannon, who was a student assistant, who then became a GA kind of underneath the Petrino staff. And he was telling me that Jeff was one that always stuck to his guns, was very convicted in the meetings. And, with the Petrino coaching staff, he would push back on things with Bobby. And he was a player's coach too. I mean, all the QBs in the QB room love Jeff. I love playing for him, because I was considered an integral part of the offense at that time. And I'm really, really excited to see what he does with the Cardinals. I was able to go up to a game at Purdue and watch him coach. And he's just he's an awesome guy. And I know the players are going to love playing for him. I love playing for him. And I can't wait to see what he does this fall.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall with that pushback Jeff gave Petrino in some capacity.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a true pushback, but he would stick to his guns. If he had
no doubt.
He'd be a recruit. He would voice his opinion, and he worked with the offense, the integral part of that with Brian and the rest of the quarterbacks.
I mean, yeah, they're all college coaches. They all got egos, so I'm sure they butted heads a little bit. All right, now let's dial back the clock a little bit. You mentioned how you were roommates with Brian. He's born and raised here in Louisville. You actually born and raised down in Shreveport, Louisiana. Came up through Loyola College Prep, so you're not as familiar as Brian and the rest of the Brohms are. When you're going through the motions of your recruitment and you get to Louisville, you check it out, maybe on a recruiting visit. What was your first impression as a recruit, and what was it about Louisville that made me say, I'm going to leave Louisiana and come up to Kentucky to come here for college?
Yeah, so it was late in the game. So I was recruited heavily to Louisiana Tech by Tony Levine, who was the special teams coach at Louisiana Tech at the time. And he had gotten the job after signing day, which Matt, I know you're kind of aware of. A lot of these coaches will kind of have these jobs that they're going to make official after signing day, but they're going to make sure that recruiting class gets signed before they move on to the next post. And so I got a call from Tony Levine after signing day, just saying, hey, I'm leaving Louisiana Tech. And it was going to be a walk-on situation at that point, but I built a very good relationship with him and felt that he truly believed in me that, that I could be a Division I college kicker. And so he took the Louisville job. Didn't really hear much from him, and then kind of in March of my senior year, he called and said, "Hey, we got a good situation here. Nate Smith is going to be a senior. They don't have anybody signed into this upcoming class. We're going to bring in a bunch of walk-ons, and whoever is going to be an open competition. And if you win the job, you can eventually get put on scholarship." So I went up there on a visit, unofficial visit. Me and my parents flew up to Louisville, and my first impression was just the excitement of the football program under Bobby Petrino, and just kind of seeing the stadium. And I came from a small school in Louisiana. Snoopy is our mascot. We're not a very good football program.
Snoopy's y'all's mascot.
Yeah. It's on the helmets and everything. And so we weren't a football powerhouse, and I wasn't heavily recruited. And so just the fact that a program like Louisville was giving me an opportunity to walk on and be a part of that football program, with the kind of the excitement they had with the new coaching staff, was something I really wanted to be a part of. And I remember sitting in the Arby's, the one that's right there around the corner from the stadium. Shout out to that Arby's. And I remember just saying, I think this is where I want to go. I think this is the best opportunity for me. And so I made the decision to walk on.
That's freaking awesome.
Arby's played a role in Art Carmody's recruitment. That is not as I expected to hear.
So, man, yeah, you get here and you start tearing it up immediately. You're leading the country and kicking statistics, and you can't even drink legally. So what was that like for you, being the big man on campus in terms of the special teams world?
Well, I mean, it didn't start out that way. I mean, I remember the first year I was in, that first fall, I kind of had that. You kind of go through that freshman kind of realization of, can I do this? Can I win this job? I mean, it was an open competition. There were 5 other walk-on kickers at the time, and then we were always kind of under the threat of, okay, well, they can go scholarship a guy. They can go bring in a guy, and as a walk-on, as you know, Vince, you're kind of bottom of the depth chart, and they're going to get a scholarship guy, every opportunity to win the job. And so we kind of went that fall. And then that spring practice, I won the job outright in the spring. There's no doubt about that. But then it's kind of, okay, they didn't put me on scholarship until right before fall camp. So that was a big relief, being put on scholarship then. But I will say that 2014, there was a lot of just kind of, internal confidence, in the locker room. We knew we were very good. We knew we were going to be a very good football team. And I didn't want to screw that up. So, each game was kind of,
BYJ, do my job.
Yeah, exactly. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to be an integral part of the football team. And, fortunately, we were good, and we were just lighting teams up on the scoreboard, and, being able to, to set records pretty early on was a lot of fun.
Your sophomore year, lots of ups and downs. But there's a quote from Coach Petrino. I've heard it. Plenty of players, I believe, have heard it. And Coach Petrino asking if you were throwing a game. Are you familiar? Can we talk about that for a second? What is your response whenever Coach Petrino is asking, are you throwing a game? Because I remember whenever he asked Tobias Hughley the same thing against Kentucky, and it was everybody else laughed. I'm sure Tobias didn't laugh, but I mean, the rest of us did.
So my and I'm glad you brought that up, Vince. Mine actually happened in it was my first do you have money on this game? Are you throwing this game? Was the last game of my junior year. I'm on on pace to win the Lou Groza Award, and I miss a 36-yard field goal against Connecticut. And I get back to the sidelines, and, he's asking me, do I have money on this game? Granted, I haven't missed much that entire season. We were up like 24-7 when I missed it. And I get back to the sideline, and I would usually go I went over to Harry and Brian because they were sitting there. And I asked Harry, because Harry was my holder. And I said, Harry, they ever said, asked if you got money on the game? I mean, Coach Petrino just told me that. That just kind of just odd. And Harry's like, Artie, he's been saying that to me every game my entire career. So
oh my gosh,
that was the first time he had used it with me. My other favorite, one of my other Petrino stories in my sophomore year, I missed my first extra point, which after making 100 something in a row at Cincinnati, and I missed it in the first quarter on the first drive, and then in the third quarter, Tony Levine, special teams coordinator, says, "Hey, Coach Petrino wants to see you." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And so I go to him, and he's like, "What the hell happened on that first extra point?" I was like, "Be honest, Coach, I just missed it." He's like, "Well, you better start making them." I'm like, "Well, that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years." Okay, I'll start doing that. But he always had kind of those. Vince, you played for him. I mean, he always kind of want to have the upper hands.
Oh yeah. Oh, he came behind me, man. I'll never forget it. One of my funny Petrino moments. I'm a walk-on. It's first fall camp, and I'm like, oh, I want to make a good impression and everything, and not look like an idiot out here. Well, 2 plays in a row, it just so happened I went to the ground with no pads on. And I mean, it's not like I meant to tackle the guy, the running back or whatever. I got bumped by the side, by no lineman. My cleat guy, I remember my cleat got caught the second time. So I did one of those front cleat stumbles into a guy, and I'm getting ready, getting the play from Grantham, and I hear come behind my ear. If you ever do that shit again, 52, you'll never see the fucking field here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, all right, noted.
All the time. Yeah. Sorry, my dog in the background. He's going nuts.
Yeah, it's a rite of passage on this podcast.
Okay, good.
Actually, while we're on that topic, before I dive into my next question, I got to know, like, what is there like a most memorable Bobby Petrino story for you? Because it seems like every player has at least one or two or five.
I'll preface it by saying Bobby Petrino gave me an opportunity to play college football, so I'll always be, and he gave me a scholarship, so I'll be grateful for that. But and it was actually one of the questions that Jacob sent. What we're going to talk about tonight, like a kick that I wish I had back. And I'll answer that one right now. It was sophomore year, first game of the year at Kentucky. I shanked a 21-yard field goal right before the end of the first half. You can go back on YouTube and you watch the halftime interview with Petrino. He's not very happy with me. Play that Sunday, and then we have basically, Labor Day off. And then we come back for that Tuesday practice. Vince, you can back me up on this. Petrino used to always do PAT field goal at the very end of practice. Yep. It was how he ended practice. So we'd go out and warm up early. Blanton and all those guys would go out early, warm up before practice, and then kind of practice starts. We kind of do our own thing, and then you kind of just wait till the very end of practice.
Man, y'all are over there hanging out with your helmets off, not doing anything. Come on.
Exactly. And we weren't. I mean, we used to do a lot of dumb stuff while you guys were practicing. And so he blows the whistle from stretch, and he calls for PAT field goal. And I'm like, uh-oh, like this is first period PAT field goal. It's never happened. It wasn't even on the script. So instead of putting the ball, like the managers go to put the ball at the 3-yard line in the middle for the PAT. Well, he calls for the ball on the 4-yard line right hash. And so we do that, go back, make the kick, and as you go, you make it, everybody kind of starts venturing to,
he's shifting you over. Yeah.
He goes, hit it again. We do it again. Hit it again. He made me kick 10 21-yard field goals in a row. And that was PAT field goal for that day. And then we get done and he blows the whistle. And, he said when he would be mad at you, he'd call you by your number. So he's like, hey, 18, get over here. And so I go to him. He's like, you'll never miss an effing field goal like that ever again. I'm like, sure. And then they went on with the rest of practice. And then sure enough, we're playing North Carolina like 3 weeks later, and we got a 21-yard field goal on the right hash. That was the most nervous kick I think I ever had in college.
Oh, my God. Could you hear him in the back of your head?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Vince, man, I snuck that thing inside the right upright. It almost missed it. Yeah.
I always felt so bad for Blanton, man, or at least so nervous for him. Those end of the practice moments, a surprise like Petrino special teams moment, like you're mentioning, where he's, wanting to work on something that you might have effed up on the week prior. Yep. And I mean, I'm like, man, I really hope Blanton makes this for his mental health.
Hey, Blanton and I have become really good friends over the years. I love him to death. We have had a lot of long conversations about playing for Bobby.
Oh, I bet. I guarantee it, man. I guarantee it for sure. So walk us through that 2006 season. What was it like knowing that a national title berth was a very real possibility for you guys, and kind of the excitement and stuff behind that? Yeah,
so, we had a really, really great stretch there, kind of that, Petrino's first go-around. 2014, we knew we were good, and we kicked the tar out of everybody. We really were only challenged a couple times that year, and then going into 2005, we thought we had a really good football team then, and we kind of stumbled out of the gate. We let Kentucky hang around that first game. We went on the road and got just lit up by South Florida, and that they kind of put a damper in things. And obviously the West Virginia game in 2005, where we lost in triple overtime, which was basically the start of the Pat White, Steve Slayton era.
Yep.
Indirectly, because we knocked out their starting quarterback, just into the third quarter. And so the whole offseason was geared towards beating West Virginia, because we knew they had everybody back, but then also we knew we would be ranked high, and we knew that if we took care of business, we could play ourselves into that conversation. And so, And I started back saying the Michael Bush injury, and I love Michael, and his locker was right next to mine. How our locker room was, it was based by number. So just I was number 18, he was number 19, so we were right next to each other. With him and Brian that year, we felt that we were going to be pretty much unstoppable on offense, and it was just our defense played well, which they did. They actually kept us in a lot of ball games when Brian was down and we had Hunter playing quarterback. But that year there's a lot of strong leadership from the upperclassmen. We had a lot of team meetings every week. If we didn't have a good practice, Amobi Okoye, Will Gay, Brian, Eric Wood, even as a sophomore on that team, had a lot of leadership at that point. We'd have team meetings where guys would light into each other after practice. We'd go in the team meeting room, or they would make sure nobody left the locker room, and it was hey, we're not doing things right. We got to get this stuff together, or we're not gonna have a shot at playing for the title. And as the year went on, as the BCS rankings, you saw them fall into place. We knew as long as we won out, we were gonna play for a national title, because Michigan and Ohio State were sitting up there at 1 and 2. We knew they were gonna play each other in the last week of the season. Yep. And so that was kind of the mindset of just, hey, take care of business each week, and we'll be there playing for a title at the end. Obviously losing Michael early hurt, because he was so good. He could do so many things.
I'm gonna cut you off right there. What was the locker room like in that he goes down? Y'all come in on Sunday. I assume the severity of the injury. In a nutshell, kind of it's going to be a while if there was ever an opportunity for him to come back. You know what I mean? You don't really know, because you haven't seen an X-ray or MRI or anything, but you get the vibe on Sunday. So what was that kind of like?
No, trust me, we knew right away. We knew when he went down that Sunday, his season was over. It's just one of those injuries that you just I saw it. Everybody, you had 42,000 people at the time. Yeah. Everybody saw it, and it was unfortunate because he ran all over Kentucky. I mean, really, he probably could have sat, but Petrino liked to light up the scoreboard, especially against those guys. We were going to try to hang 100 on them if we could, and we knew right away. And in the locker room, it was just kind of a excitement of beating Kentucky the way we did, but also, okay, next man up, Colby Smith, George Stripling, those guys. Hey, you got to step up and be ready to go. And so it was a excitement versus somber thing. But then we had to play the next week, go on the road, and kind of keep this, as next man up mentality. But when you look back on it, he really could have helped us down the stretch for sure.
And I hate to bring it up, but I have to ask about it, because that 2016, the way that the season had gone up to that point, the parallels are a little similar to how 2016 went, but then the latter third ends up completely different. How did that Rutgers game affect the psyche of the team? Because you look, I mean, given how the schedule played out, I mean, you guys could have easily just said, all right, well, we're not going to make it to the title game. We could mail it in, because when you look at that 16 team, they lose it to Houston and then the wheels fall off. You guys lose to Rutgers, then you go out and blow out South Florida, Pitt, and Connecticut, make it to the Orange Bowl and beat Wake Forest. What was the team locker room like after and during that Rutgers game?
Yeah, and I don't know if we're going to talk about the Rutgers game later. We'll talk about it now. But that you tell me, you direct me how you want. I can take you through the whole Rutgers game if you want.
Go ahead, do your thing.
Go ahead,
man.
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, so that's coming off the huge West Virginia game, and I can't preface enough that the whole offseason was geared towards, we got West Virginia at home. We've got to beat them. They're the top team to beat. We didn't really see Rutgers coming. And I don't think really anybody did that 2006 year. I mean, we beat them the year before 56-5 or something like that. I mean, we didn't think they were as good as they were. Now, we didn't overlook. I'll preface that by saying we didn't overlook them. The coaching staff did a really good job. We beat West Virginia. We're on an emotional high, but again, our goals to play for the national title. The coaching staff immediately, they started game planning for Rutgers right after. We actually had a really good week of practice leading up to that game, but then everything was just kind of off base from the traveling there, the plane, the charter plane was late to Louisville. We ended up leaving like I think 4 hours later or something like that. You should have asked Greg Brohm about that, because Greg Brohm was on. I remember him just on the phone like yelling at everybody from my air about trying to get us out of there. So we didn't land in Piscataway until I think like 9:30, 10 o'clock. I mean, it was we got in there late. We didn't have any of the normal stuff. It was basically eat and go to bed. So we didn't have any of the night before kind of, meetings, Vince, that I know you remember.
Oh, my favorite, the night before meetings and the great meals. Yeah.
The highlight video. We basically ate dinner. There's a brief meeting, and then it was like, hey, let's get off our feet. And then, it was a Thursday night game. The whole country was hyping it up. Rutgers is the biggest game, since Rutgers invented football in 1804 or whatever it was. And so there's just a lot of hype around it. And we get there, and I honestly, it was awesome pregame. It was a festive pregame atmosphere. They played nothing but like Bon Jovi and like Springsteen warm-up music, which is kind of rare.
I bet you were vibing out there, kicking the ball to that stuff.
Yeah, my backup kicker was from New Jersey, Martin Ziccone.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, this is awesome. Like, this is the best pregame music ever. And so we were kind of in control of that in that entire first half. We were up 25-7 at one point. Like, I felt on the sidelines that this game's over. We're marching up and down the field against them. Our defense is in control. And then the second half, we couldn't get anything going offensively. You may have to look up the stats on it, but I don't think we crossed midfield in the second half, or if we did, it was very, very maybe right over midfield. Corey Getty, our punter, did a great job of kind of, pinning them deep and making them go the length of the field. But they kind of wore down our defense. And credit to Greg Schiano and that offense. They ran the ball, and they controlled the clock. They kept Brian off the field in the second half. And it got to the point to where all of a sudden we've got a tie game. They get the ball back, and it's okay. Hopefully the defense can get a stop. If not, we need some time to be able to go back and counter if they do score. And, it just part of the game. Jeremy Ito misses that kick, but Will Gay, who made 1,000 plays over his career at Louisville, just he was trying to make a play, and you can't fault him for that, but he jumped off sides. They get a second chance, and they win the game. And that was the most, in my 40 years at Louisville, that was the most, somber locker room. Will Gay's in tears. You can't console him. You can try to, but he's thinking he's cost us, everything for that season. And the plane ride back, it was quiet. And, Matt, to your point, that was our one loss. Well, we knew, okay, let's just keep playing out, because, eventually we may get back into the BCS Bowl, conversation. And so, again, that senior leadership, that upperclassmen leadership was really good to kind of reset everything. And we finished the year strong. I think Rutgers lost that next week. And so we knew the door was back open. We had the tiebreakers at that point, as long as Rutgers lost. And we were also kind of schedule watching, saying, okay, West Virginia plays Rutgers last game of the year. It's at West Virginia. West Virginia should be able to take care of business. So we played Connecticut at noon that last week of the year. Destroy Connecticut. The Orange Bowl representatives are there. People are throwing oranges on the field. They're handing out the stickers and all that. And when we're sitting there thinking, okay, well, everybody's just conceding the fact that what Rutgers is going to lose tonight. It was like the primetime ESPN game. So late that afternoon, you get the this was before kind of, Twitter and social media, but we're watching the other championship games because the game was on championship Saturday. And the news breaks that Pat White's not starting. He's not playing against Rutgers. And so we're all of a sudden,
shit.
And again, this was back when there was the Big East Bowl lineup. It was basically BCS Bowl, Sun Bowl. So we're staring into Miami, El Paso.
Oh my God. You get that El Paso notice, like it comes at, like you start reading it, you're just like, please, anywhere but El Paso, Texas.
Yeah, and by the way, we'll talk about that later. I've been really involved in the bowl landscape post football career with the Independence Bowl. I can tell you stories about that. But so we're there. Everybody's thinking we're going to the Orange Bowl, and we're there that Saturday night, sweating a West Virginia Rutgers triple overtime game. West Virginia scores, they get the 2. Rutgers scores, and they knock down the pass. We're like, no, is there no flags? Make sure there's no flags. And we're at the house at that time. It's like me, Brian, Justin, a couple of the guys. I think my dad and my younger brothers, 2 of my younger brothers there. We're jumping up and down like we won the Super Bowl because we know we're not going to El Paso. We get to go to the BCS Bowl. So yeah, that was an adventurous Saturday night leading up to finish the season at least. That's
pretty cool. Just hearing the comparisons of senior leaderships and us. Matt mentioned our situation in 2016 where we lost to Houston, and everything kind of fell off the rails after that. A lot like you guys, we were watching. I was at that Houston game, by the way, and that game was very same Rutgers vibes, like huge game. They were just so into it. They got a little bit of momentum to start the game, and then it was kind of like you're an uphill battle. So I get it, man. Yeah, that's the senior leadership comparison between you all just being able to hold it together and just continue keeping the blinders on. We were looking at everything other than who the hell is in front of us to play. We're like, why are we not 4? Why are we not 5? We should be up there. We beat these teams, and then eventually that creeps in. And you get beat by a team like freaking Houston and Ed Oliver, who probably solely got drafted off of that game. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was a painful one to watch him get drafted. But I was going to say really quickly before we move on from, we try to talk as little about the Rutgers game as possible, but where does that stack up as far as the most hostile road environments you were involved in? Is that by far the most hostile, or was there anybody else that you guys traveled to?
Yeah, West Virginia when they were good, that was pretty hostile because there's nothing to do in Morgantown except root for the football team. So that was very hostile, fun. It's fun to play there. When we went down to Miami in 2004, they were still playing in the old Orange Bowl, and they were still coming off those, early 2000s Miami teams, and they were good. They weren't the 2001 team. That was a very hostile environment. I remember not being able to hear myself think there. But the Rutgers one, they put in extra stands for that game. That was a very, very hostile environment.
They put in extra stands. What did that look like?
Well, they put the bleachers in, like they had like kind of like a berm type thing behind there.
Uh-huh.
They just put in a whole bunch of extra stands back behind one of the end zones.
Okay, for you, I'm sure you've been in some crazy high pressure situations being a kicker, man. And I got to ask you, like, what you're going up there to kick a game winner? What is going through your head in that situation? I'm sure it's do your job. I've done this 150 times, blah blah blah. But what's it feeling like hearing the roar of the crowd? Seeing the ball get placed there and seeing it snapped and holder holds it. What is going through your head at that time?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're trying to you got one half of your brain that's telling you, hey, you've done this a million times, trust your technique, all that stuff. And you got the other half of your brain that's like, hey, don't screw this up. You'll be everybody will hate you. Trino's going to yell at you. Class on Monday is going to be terrible. Yeah. So you're kind of fighting, both sides of your brain there. But again, I overanalyze things probably too much on the sidelines. And so I'd be kind of playing the game in my head before I'd get out there. But when I got out there, it's kind of like the scene in Old School when Will Ferrell's debating Carville and he kind of blacks out.
Oh my God.
That's kind of what happens. Your muscle memory takes over and you kind of forget what you're doing out there, and you just you execute. It's really what happens. The biggest kick that I had, I think, was at West Virginia on a Thursday night my senior year. I mentioned Harry Douglas was my holder. He was always scared that I was going to kick his hand. I don't know why, because I never ever did it.
That's such a wide receiver thing. Oh, don't touch my finger.
Yeah, and so he would get scared if the laces weren't already out on the snap. He just wouldn't spin it. He would get scared that he would like spin the ball out of his hand or whatever. So I kicked the laces a lot during my career with Harry. So that West Virginia game, it's like a 38-yarder to tie the game. There's like maybe 2 minutes left or whatever it is, and I can't hear anything. I'm just looking. I'm watching Harry's hands. Like I'm waiting for his hand to go, to flash for the hole and his hand to go up to catch the ball. And he catches it. He puts the ball down. I'm staring laces directly at me. And at that point, you just swing your leg and you hope. So I swung my leg and kicked it and looked up and it's going right down the middle. And I tell people this, and they ask me, I've never done any drugs, but I have to assume this is what drug addicts are chasing, because when you hear the roar of the crowd, like you can't hear anything. Then as soon as that ball goes through the uprights, it's just dead silent. It's like you can hear a pin drop, and it's the coolest feeling in the world. Awesome. Knowing that you've helped your team in that situation. And at that point, we tied the game, and I'm like, yeah, we got this. We get back to the sideline, kick it off to Pat White. He gives like 56 yards untouched for to win the game. So that was my most pressure packed kick. But that's kind of the thought process going through it. Just trust your technique. Harry and I had a deal where we would dap each other up before he'd go down to do the hole. Now that would kind of get me in that routine to start it off.
So obviously we don't have to talk about that 2007 season because we
don't talk about the 2018 season on here either. So don't feel
that 2007 season. There were a lot of highs in there. And also, there was obviously a lot of lows. I like playing for Steve Tractor. I thought that whole situation was just was tough with just how the way things were put together. And the hype that was put on that team, kind of unfairly by the media. When Petrino left, which that's another story in itself. And we can talk about that too if you want.
Yes, yeah, I definitely want to hear that.
Actually, no. Let's talk about that for a second, because obviously, earlier in that offseason, he inks a 10-year deal to stay at Louisville. And then it was a month later he bolts for the Falcons. What was that whole process like? And plus, like, obviously it wasn't the first time that Bobby had flirted with another gig. So what was that specific flirtation like, and just being under a coach who was like being pursued by a whole bunch of different schools?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, and again, as you get older in life, you understand the business. Like, you can never fault the coach for taking, the bigger opportunity with the bigger paycheck and all that stuff. But we dealt with it every year. 2003, we dealt with the Auburn deal. We had a team meeting where he basically said, "Yeah, I met with Auburn, but I'm staying here. This is where I want to be." Well, okay, well, great. We want you to be here too. Then in 2004, it was the LSU job. That broke right before the Liberty Bowl, and he kind of denied that he'd met with LSU, but then it came out that he did. And I actually know some people, and I knew a guy that was in the interview room with Petrino. I found that out after the fact that he did interview for the LSU job, and LSU loved him. He came in with a plan on how he was going to utilize their offensive talent, and they really liked him. They just thought they were hiring another Nick Saban, which maybe is not a bad thing, because Nick Saban's gone on to be, one of the greatest college coaches, but they were looking at it from dealing with the media, dealing with the boosters. And that's why they kind of went with the Les Miles path. And then in 2006, we thought he was here for good. He signed that contract, and, looking back on it, there were the signs for me that he had maybe taken that job before the Orange Bowl. The year before in the Gator Bowl, he had treated it. He wanted us to treated it like we were playing for a national title. So we had like curfew every night. We had meetings all the time. It was practices were sharp. It was just like, okay, this is what it will be like. We play for a national title next year. I mean, this is how prepared he was in trying to win a national title. What he treated basically like the Gator Bowl. Now, granted, it was pretty easy. We were staying at like Vince, were you on the team in Gator Bowl in 17?
Yes, I was. We were on a resort, right?
Yeah, the Sawgrass.
Same resort. Yep. Yeah.
So like, there's nothing.
There's nothing there.
There's nothing to do. Yeah. So he was like, okay, I'm gonna.
And it rained the whole week for us. Art Petrino had that worked out with God too, so we couldn't even go on the beach.
There you go. So like, I mean, I remember just like we'd be in our rooms like 9 because we had curfew like 9:30 and 10 or whatever it was. And so in 06 we go to the Orange Bowl and we're thinking, okay, Orange Bowl, like this is BCS Bowl, playing Wake Forest. Did we think we were a lot better than Wake Forest? Yeah. But still, he canceled all the meetings. Like we would practice in the morning, then we would have like a special teams meeting, I think, and then he basically canceled all like the offensive defensive meetings. So we basically would practice, and you know how the bowl practices are; they're kind of watered down because you're in the middle of a public, high school, wherever you're practicing. And then we had all afternoon to like go on jet skis and go at the beach and play beach volleyball. And so we basically didn't meet the entire week of the Orange Bowl. We go play the Orange Bowl, we win. That's great. And we're thinking the same thing. We got Petrino back. We Brian may be going, maybe coming back. We thought we have a good team. And so we get home, and I'm literally driving back to the complex for the Sunday night meeting before you start, the winter semester. They tell you.
Was Andy your all's guy back then too?
No, it was Greg Brohm.
Oh, Greg was the guy for
Greg was the director of operations. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we go to the meeting where they basically say like, okay, you're hey, weightlifting is going to start this time. Spring practice is going to be here. Go to class. Don't be an idiot. That it was that kind of meeting. It's like it was always like 9:00, right? It's like late at night. Allow people to get back in town. Well, I'm driving to the complex. It's like 8:50, and I get a phone call from Joe Shad, who at the time is the ESPN senior college football reporter. He's like the Pete Thamel and the who am I thinking of from on Fox? That's really like Stuart Mandel. The guys, Bruce Feldman. He liked the Bruce Feldman ESPN at the time. So he calls me at 8:50, and I'd met him at the College Football Awards show a few weeks prior, and I'd given him my number because he knew I was roommates with Brian. He was like, "Well, I may call you, to get scoop on Brian." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to give you any. He's my best one of our best." But anyways, so it's that South Florida area code, and he calls and, "Hey, it's Joe Shad, ESPN." I'm like, "Oh, hey man, what's going on?" He's like, "Yeah, I just want to get a comment for you on Petrino being the next head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. What are your thoughts?" I was like, "Excuse me?" And he was like, he goes, you don't know?" And I was like, "No." And I said, "Actually, Joe, I'm heading to a team meeting that's going to start in about 8 minutes. I'm expecting him to be there. Do you mind if I call you back?"
My gosh.
So he's like, "Yeah, sure." And so he basically had told me, he's like, "Hey, you signed the contract. It's going to go, it's going to break at the top of the hour," which, I guess Petrino maybe wanted to break at 9 while he was telling us. Well, so I get in the locker room. And again, remember, this is before Twitter, before iPhones. The iPhone hadn't been released yet. So like nobody really had like social media or anything. And so we go into the team meeting room. It's like 9:01, 9:02, 9:03, like no Petrino. Then all of a sudden, the guys that you're not supposed to bring your phone to the team meeting room, but guys brought their phones to the team meeting room. All of a sudden, you start hearing like the pings. You hear like the vibrations, people calling.
Yeah.
The story had broke. And so Petrino, to his credit, he came in and he told us why he appreciated everything we'd done that season. He told us why he was taking the job. He wanted to win the Super Bowl, and that was a career goal of his. He thought he could do it with Michael Vick as the quarterback. And that obviously was the summer before the Feds came and took Michael Vick away. So that didn't work out. And then he teared up too. I mean, he seemed genuinely sad that he was leaving us to go take the job. Everybody in that room, we didn't feel bad. We didn't, feel bad for ourselves. We didn't fault him for taking the job. And he walked out, and it was kind of like, all right, what's next? And Paul Petrino, who was our O coordinator, and his younger brother was like, all right, everybody get with your position coach. And so Tom McMahon was our special teams coordinator, and he was a linebackers coach as well. So the linebackers specialist got with him. it's kind of quiet and he's kind of quiet. And I was like, well, coach, you're like, what do we do now? And this was kind of my introduction to how college football business is. He was like, well, I don't know about you guys, but right now I don't have a job. And so he basically and remember, it's January like 8th or 9th. Like it's late in the coaching carousel is kind of run its course. And so all the position coaches, basically, they kind of bolted up to their offices to start calling their agents or calling whatever, or trying to figure out where they're going, if Petrino's going to take them with him. Because Petrino, when he left, he basically got in the car and was flying to Atlanta for the press conference the next day. And so, of course, I called Joe Shad back and, give him a few sound bites for the article. But that was the basis of him, leaving for the Falcons job. And I'll segue into, Tom Jurich, the AD at the time, he had to act fast. I mean, he had to go find a head coach. And so he hired Steve Kragthorpe, and he put a caveat in there that any of the assistant coaches that Petrino didn't take to Atlanta, he had to keep on staff. And so you had a mixture of coaching staffs at that point. You had the guys that Petrino didn't take to Atlanta versus the guys that he wanted to bring in to, from his staff at Tulsa. And I think he brought in a guy to be kind of an O coordinator. That guy ended up leaving after a few weeks, just that the meshing didn't go well. But again, we thought we were going to be very good in 2007. The first kind of cracks in the we're not very good armor were the Middle Tennessee game, the second game when they basically scored 45 on us and we couldn't stop them. That was kind of okay, we may have a problem here. We're going to have to put up 70 to beat some of these teams.
Just looking back on that season, you talk about some of the chinks in the armor, but it does kind of baffle you a little bit just how things wound up, just because, like you said, less than 48 hours later, Steve Kragthorpe sitting at that podium, as the new head coach. Like, it was quick.
Yeah.
When you talk about Petrino left on the 8th and Kragthorpe was hired on the 10th. Like, it was that quick. So it is fascinating to hear, Jurich basically, stood his ground and said, asked Kragthorpe to keep on the other coaches. So it is kind of crazy how things just kind of ended up winding up. But as you suggested, it could be a lot of the pressure was on Kragthorpe to succeed right away. Whereas, do you think maybe if he had some of his guys, maybe things change, or as a football player, is it better to kind of maintain that consistency with the coaching staff?
I think honestly, offensively, it was kind of tough because Jeff had every opportunity to go wherever he wanted to go. Brian had decided to come back for a senior year, but she had actually got hurt in the Orange Bowl. And so he wouldn't have been able to go through all the pre-draft stuff. He had to have his shoulder kind of scope there. So the decision was kind of easy. I mean, the night that Petrino left, I remember going back to the house. We lived on Osprey Lane right there off Poplar Level Road. And I remember we're all kind of shell shocked that, we don't have a coach. What's next? I remember, Oscar coming over to the house and kind of, getting with Brian and being like, okay, we may need to go. I mean, and those were kind of the conversations of let's look into, going into the NFL draft, because Brian at the time was, projected to be, top 10 pick easily. But going back to that, Jeff stayed on. Jeff easily could have been the offensive coordinator, but, Steve Kragthorpe brought in, his guy. I think his name was maybe like Charlie Stubbs or something. And it just, there was some kind of clashing there. And, to Brian's credit, Brian kept us in a lot of games. I mean, Brian, had him and Harry Douglas basically, we would spot teams like 30 points, and Brian and Harry would have to come, bring us back by themselves, essentially. But to answer your question, I think it would have probably been a little bit easier if maybe a new staff had come in and just kind of reset things. But again, you had so much, veteran leadership on that team that might have been tough too, because we'd have gone from a whole bunch of winning and we know what works to a new staff. I mean, that could have been bad too. I don't know if there's any right or wrong answer on how you do that.
It's fascinating to look back at how things have changed so much, because in this day and age, it seems like, if you bring back coaches now, it doesn't really matter in this day and age, or I guess it matters a little bit more, excuse me, in this day and age, just because of the transfer portal. That wasn't really an option for you guys, so you guys are kind of just stuck in the place where you were. So it's just kind of fascinating to look back and just see how things have changed so quickly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a completely different landscape. I mean, it's hard to think. I mean, time flies so fast. It's almost 20 years ago. What we're talking about.
It is not almost 20 years ago. No, it's not.
It feels like
so. I felt terrible that we didn't hit this in like some form of a chronological order. But what was it like going to the college football award show, winning the award? Did you know you were going to win the award prior? I'm always curious about that. Do they let the guys know, like, hey, you're probably going to win this right here, so you might want to get your speech ready, or X, Y, and Z and stuff like that? So what was that like? What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I mean, as a kicker, it's the Heisman for kickers. It's what you I remember Rocco. God bless Rocco. He's still doing his thing.
Man,
I remember he came into the training room. I was getting my ankle taped up for practice, and when they the day that they were going to announce the finalists. And again, this is back before social media, or you could follow all that kind of stuff. I had no idea they were announcing the finalists that day. So Rocco came in. I was like, "Hey, congratulations! You're finalist for the Lou Groza Award." And I was like, "Okay, who are the other finalists?" And he named the two other finalists. I was like, "Okay, I actually have a shot here." So, but you go down, and the way the Palm Beach County Sports Commission gives out the award, they do it really well. So they actually fly in, because the award show was in Orlando at the time. And by the way, I hate that they don't do it. They do this virtual award show thing. The best part about the award show is being able to be around, the best in college football.
Yeah, no doubt.
Having dinner and doing all that kind of stuff. So, but the Palm Beach County Sports Commission, they actually fly the 3 finalists down that Sunday after Championship Sunday, and you're there Sunday night. They have a welcome dinner. Monday morning, you play golf at some nice golf club. Me and the other 2 finalists, we'd had a late night the night before, so we were not in the best shape to go play golf next morning. And then they have a really nice dinner and reception at the Breakers Hotel. And again, this is also, they're doing the Palm Beach County offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, coach of the year, team of the year. So they got all these other high school finalists too that are with you, kicker of the year. All that. So do a really nice dinner that Monday night. That Tuesday night is actually like a reception where they give you like your finalist plaque, and you're in a tux, and there's it's big, big old deal. And then and I'll get my Lamar Jackson story in a little bit, but then we bus to Orlando that Wednesday night. They do a big get together with all the ESPN people. Fowler's there, Herb Street's there. Corso's there, all the finalists are there. Everybody's having a great time. And then Thursday was one of the longest days, because you're waiting for the awards show and you have no clue. Like you don't know. They don't tell you ahead of time that you're going to win. And so you're sitting there, and so what they did when they started doing the awards show, I found this out, is because they're reading the teleprompter. The presenters are reading the teleprompter. And they used to put the winner of the award in the teleprompter. And so what everybody would do is they would just turn around and watch the teleprompter instead of watching the actual presenter. And so they quit doing that. They tell the presenter right before they go on stage who the winner is. And so then that's, the presenter will know. And so then, I was sitting there, my heart was beating out of my chest. I was there with my parents, and they announced it, and you're on cloud 9. You basically won the Heisman Trophy for kickers. Went on stage, you do your bit with Fowler, and then afterwards it was really cool. The Palm Beach County Sports Commission got a kind of a little table in a room at the ESPN zone there at Disney, where I don't know if it's there anymore, but they had an ESPN zone. I'm probably saying my age. Those were really popular. They had a table, and it's just a really cool moment. I won the award. The other finalists were kind of pissed that they hadn't won the award, so they didn't come to the thing. But then Fowler, Herb Street, and Brett Bielema at the time were there right next to us, and so we invited them over. I mean, it's not every day you have a cocktail with
That's awesome.
Fowler, Herbie, and Bielema. So we're sitting there, and because Jacob would ask for a cool story from the award show, so we're sitting there, we're talking, having a great time. I've introduced my parents to Chris Fowler and Herb Street and all that, and all of a sudden, like Herb Street gets a message that he's needed, and so he's like, "Hey, I got to go. There's some breaking news. Congratulations, whatever." So he goes. So now we're just hanging out with Fowler and Bielema. Well, then that was the night that Rich Rodriguez had accepted the Alabama job from Virginia, and so Herbstreit had to go and do his bit on Sports Center, and that was kind of like, oh wow, Rich Rodriguez is leaving West Virginia to be the next head coach at Alabama. And then of course he backed out of it like 24 hours later. That was a really cool kind of deal to see how the inner workings of all that kind of stuff.
How unprofessional of him to leave a dinner with you to go announce that news. I mean, who does he think he is?
Well, they're awesome. And actually, I was fortunate. I got to present the 2014 Lou Groza Award at the ESPN College Football Awards show, and so I go down for the Palm Beach County stuff, and it so happens in the fall of 2014, Lamar Jackson was the MVP. So I was able to meet him at that point. We had the Louisville connection. Met his mom. He's obviously was Vince. He was electric then as a high school senior. And then, it was cool to come back. I used to come back to games. I go back to games all the time, but to come back in 2015, 16, 17, and, I'd wear my Lou Groza thing, and Lamar always knew that. And so we'd always kind of catch up and all that.
Well,
so
just so you know, the guys like myself who are from Louisville, played at Louisville, watched you growing up, we also knew who you were without the, award on your chest and all that stuff. So,
well, thanks. Well, thank you. But no, it was fun to see, Lamar's career go from that high school point to where he is today. But no, I mean, winning the award was, a culmination of a lot of hard work. And Harry Douglas was mad that I didn't mention him when I won the award and was on stage. But it's great, and I have it here in my office at home, and it's cool reminder that hard work pays off.
Right, and not only did you win the Lou Groza, but by the time that you ended up graduating from Louisville, you were at the time the NCAA's all-time leading scorer by kicker and third overall behind a pair of running backs, one of which was Ricky Williams, which is he's no slouch. So heading into your post-collegiate career, what were some of your aspirations once you left Louisville? Did you have eyes on the NFL draft? Were you starting to kind of gauge what your non-football opportunities like? What were those few months after leaving Louisville like when you're trying to gauge of what you wanted to do next?
That was a bittersweet deal because we finished our senior year against Rutgers. That was a national televised game, and I was able to break the record that night, as well as kick a game-winning field goal. And, Brian had led us on a great comeback, to win the game. And so we won that game. There was thought that we may have a bowl game. We were 6-6, but the Big East didn't have enough bowl tie-ins at that time for us to know we had a shot. So we were hoping that we'd get an at-large spot, but unfortunately we weren't able to get one. So the season just kind of came to a halt. Like, it was done, after that. And so then you turn towards the NFL, and of course, every football player that puts on helmets and shoulder pads thinks, wants a shot at trying to play in the NFL. So I started that process. I went to the Hula Bowl, played that college all-star game, was invited to the NFL Combine, went to the Combine, did great. I was 15 for 15 on field goals, but didn't kick off as well. So the year before, they had moved the kickoff, and they've since moved it back, but they moved the kickoff yard line from the 35 to the 30. So we lost those 5 yards. And at the time, Devin Hester was running wild. Josh Cribbs was running wild. Basically, if you didn't kick the ball, 9 yards, 10 yards deep in the end zone, those guys were running it back. And that's what all the special teams coaches were looking for the kicker that not only could, hit field goals, but also we're going to need you to kick the ball out of the end zone. And going through that process, I knew that wasn't me. I was realistic about that. I knew that wasn't me. At my best, I was going to put the ball maybe 5 yards deep, in the end zone. And I remember talking to David Akers about this, and when and I had an opportunity. I was an undrafted free agent with Tampa Bay. That they had Matt Bryant at the time. He was a great NFL kicker. I mean, he kicked for a long time in the NFL. I knew I wasn't going to beat him out, and I was realistic about it. I knew that I really wasn't going to have a shot at playing in the NFL. David Akers, to his credit, he gave me a call basically saying, "Hey, what you did at Louisville was phenomenal." And he was always kind of a mentor to me. We kicked with each other in the off season. And he said, what you did at Louisville was phenomenal. You had a much better career than I ever did at Louisville. You should be very proud of your accomplishments. The NFL is a tough business. And, this is what they're looking for. They're not looking for the fact that you can kick the ball, 5 yards deep in the end zone now. They're thinking, okay, in January in Philadelphia, are you going to be able to kick the ball, into the end zone? Are you going to be able to hit that 52-yard field goal into the wind to take your team to the Super Bowl? They're looking for those guys. And he goes, you're a great college kicker, and there's no doubt, I know you can kick field goals in the NFL, but that's what they're looking for. And so and he was basically saying, hey, be proud of what you did. It's an uphill battle if you want to keep doing this. And so that was good for me, because I know a lot of guys, they chase it. They get done with college, they chase the professional, trying to get to the NFL, and they'll waste 3, 4, 5 years. And I have some buddies of mine, kickers, that did that. They continued to chase that dream. Some got there, others never got there. And so I was realistic about it, and I was fortunate there was an arena football team in my backyard here in Shreveport, and so I started playing arena football and used my finance degree, and got a real job and played arena football on the side, and loved every minute of it.
And kind of building off of that, obviously you played in arena football for a couple seasons after that. At what point was it that you decided that, hey, continuing to play football is probably not the avenue for me now? I should probably move on to my next endeavor. When was it that you decided that?
Unfortunately, Matt, that wasn't decided by me. That was decided by the head coach. If you look at my Twitter, if you look at my Twitter profile, it's mentioned in there.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I was cut at a Quiznos for my arena football day. So we had played at Oklahoma City the Saturday before, and
oh my God, it is in your Twitter bio.
So
yep.
And at the time I was working for Chase Bank in the commercial banking department, so I had a good job. Arena football was just basically beer money, and still getting that football edge. So we go up to Oklahoma City, and had a rough game. I missed a couple extra points, and then we were up by 6, and we had the ball at like the 10-yard line, 9-yard line. And so at that point, you can't kneel the ball, run up the clock, because the clock stops unless there's positive yardage. The clock will stop if you don't get positive yardage. And so we basically threw a couple passes in the end zone, tried to score. I went out for a field goal, 27-yard field goal, with about, I don't know, maybe like 11 seconds left. And so, if I make it, basically game over. If I miss it, well, we tackle them, or, we stop them from advancing the ball, and they've got, Hail Mary that we can just knock down on the game. Well, unfortunately, I rifled it off the right upright. It bounced. A DB caught it on the run and took off and ran it in for a touchdown. They kicked the extra point. We lose the game. At that point, I'm walking off the field, and I'm like, yeah, I'm probably getting cut on Monday. And so the head coach called me, and we still have a great relationship to this day. He called me and was like, hey, you want to get a sandwich at Quiznos? I was like, yeah, sure. Let's go.
Yeah, if you're going to cut me, at least buy my freaking sub.
Yeah. Well, actually, that was part of arena football. They give you these meal coupons. Like each week, we would get an envelope that had like 7 meal coupons in there to different restaurants around town. So it was part of their trade sponsorship. And so they would basically just get a free, combo meal at Quiznos or whatever. And so I'm sure our head coach had 100 of them. And so, on my lunch break at, my commercial banking job, I meet him at Quiznos. It's like, hey, I hate to have to do this, but, it's business, and we're going to let you go. And I was like, yeah, I get it. I understand. Thanks. We love playing for the Battle Wings. And that was kind of it. He was like, hey, you don't want to have lunch? And I was like, no, I'm good. I think I want to go back to the office. And so that was kind of it. And at that point, my banking career had kind of taken off. And I was like, I'm not. And we found out later the team was moving to New Orleans. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to continue to try to chase this after the year. And so that was pretty much the end of my my football career.
So following all that, you've obviously worked in finance and involved in some college football stuff as well, where you've been heading up on some bowl committees and stuff. Why don't you speak on that, the bowl games you've been involved with, and kind of the stuff that you do with that?
Yeah, so I came back to Shreveport. We obviously have the Independence Bowl. It's actually like the ninth longest, maybe. I think we're the ninth longest tenured bowl game in college football. And so, of course, I get back to town. I'm working, in the banking industry, and some guys are like, "Hey, you play college football. You want to, get involved with the bowl game?" And so I volunteered, just different things for first few years, and then I got on the executive committee. And you're on the executive committee for like 5 years. You kind of work your way up to being like vice chairman, and you get to eventually be the chairman of the game. So I was the chairman of the 2019 Independence Bowl between Miami and Louisiana Tech, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, the years before that, I'm still on the selection committee, and so I still go on scouting trips for games. We had an ACC tie-in, so I actually was able to utilize my Independence Bowl credentials to get seats up in the press box and feel
awesome.
the game. So I was at the game in 16, obviously the Houston Louisville game, and then I was actually also at the Kentucky game in the season with the Orange Bowl guys who I knew really well, and they were dead set. Sorry,
man, 0 for 2 that year, and that was a good year, Art.
Yeah, no kidding. But they were dead set on inviting you guys if y'all won that game, and so I hated how that ended. But yeah, it's really cool, being involved. I've been able to go to multiple ACC championship games on behalf of the bowl. The SEC championship game was at the Conference USA championship game when Brian and Jeff won in 2016. And so it's kept me involved in college athletics. I used to go to the ACC spring meetings down in Jacksonville. And so being around, all the coaching staffs and athletic directors, you kind of see the inner workings of how things work in college football. And that's kept my football, itch alive. I'm still involved with the Independence Bowl. I co-host our weekly radio show during the college football season. And was really cool in 2019 when Miami and Tech were here. Eric Wood was the sideline reporter for ESPN during the game. So I got to hang out with Eric while he was down here, and we had a real good time. So, they really enjoyed that. And, bowl games are great. I mean, they're the fabric of college football. I'm curious to see what happens with the playoff and what it does to some of these bowl games, because they really are a wonderful experience for the players and the coaching staffs.
Did you know that much stuff went on behind the scenes in college football? Because whenever I got moved up to helping with Coach Satterfield and those guys up in the offices, I was like, oh, this is going to be smooth. I'm not going to be all that extra work BS. I don't have to do that anymore. I'm not lifting. I don't, it would complete opposite. But did you know that much went on behind the scenes with, selecting bowl teams and, getting everything scheduled?
I tell you, it's eye opening. You can read the articles now. I mean, ESPN has a ton of control over these bowl games. It's cheap programming for them. That's why they own so many of them, because it's cheaper for them to produce and put on a bowl game between two group of 5 teams than it is to pay Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless to yell at each other for. I mean, I remember. Two quick stories. 2 of my favorite stories from my times at actually 3 if you got the time.
Go ahead, man. Yeah, we're here for you. Go ahead.
So the first one is in 2017 we know we're not going to get a SEC team, because that was kind of the whole thing. They were playing too many up into the group of 6 in the playoffs, and so we got to go to backup agreements. And so I go out to the day after Thanksgiving, I go out to Los Angeles to go to the Cal UCLA game in the Rose Bowl. And both teams are 5 and 6. So basically the winner of the game, goes to a bowl game. And so get out there. I've got to pass out all the credentials and stuff. And of course, you're in the press box, and then people see it and they're like, oh, the Independence Bowl's here. Oh, winner of the game goes to the Independence Bowl. It's like, well, that's not quite how it works, but okay. It was it was a day after Thanksgiving. It was the night after Thanksgiving. So it was a late kick on the East Coast, 7 o'clock West Coast. It's dead. There's nobody there. They had fired Jim Moore like 3 weeks before. I have to, if part of these bowl trips, you have to go talk to the athletic director. And so I'm making the rounds, and knock on the athletic director's, suite. And then some of these places, it's like tough to get in. If like you're not on the list, they're not just going to let you in. So I've got these cards the Independence Bowl gives, like, hey, I'm with the Independence Bowl. I just want to say hello. And so again, it's completely dead, this stadium. Nobody cares that Cal and UCLA are slogging to finish college football season. I go in that AD's suite. You'd have thought they won the Super Bowl. It was the most festive atmosphere I'd ever been in. Well, what I didn't know is they had literally like 2 hours before had inked up Chip Kelly to be their head coach. And so they were having a huge celebration. And of course, the AD is like, yeah, if we win, we're not coming to Shreveport. Like, season's done. We're done. But thanks for coming. So that was one. The other one was when I asked you, the chairman, we're hoping for a good ACC team. We're hoping for a good team from Conference USA, because we know we're not going to get the SEC team because, Bama, LSU, Georgia are all playing out. And so I go up to Boston College the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Pittsburgh. Boston College is playing Pittsburgh. I'm begging Pittsburgh to win this game because I don't want a 6-6 Boston College, because I know that ESPN is going to send us a 6-6 Boston College team.
Terrible ratings, terrible football, boring. Yeah, nobody that loves it. That's a big BC fan. He's a side BC fan. He doesn't
Don't listen to them.
Yeah. So anyway, we're there, and at halftime, I go into the AD suite, and it's Martin Jarmond, who fantastic guy, by the way. He's now UCLA athletic director. And there's nobody in there. It's just him. Nobody's come to this Boston College, Pitt game. And so I'm talking to him, and, Adazio's on the hot seat at this point. And so I'm talking to him. He's great. We're talking about football. We're talking about, my days at Louisville, his college basketball days. So I'm a huge college basketball fan. And all of a sudden, it's like booster for BC comes in, and he just looks pissed. And he takes one look at me, and he's like, you're not supposed to be in here. Like, I'm very good at like reading the room. You kind of get good at these situations when you're in these like, spring meetings or these college football meetings. I'm like, yeah, I think that's my cue to get out of here. And so I leave. They have their conversation. I go back in the press box. Pitt's just giving the game away. Boston College has got A.J. Dillon. They're just handing him the rock. He's getting 4 yards. He's just grinding out the end of the game. So Boston College wins. And I go, down. Of course, I'm like, now I've got to go pretend like I love Boston College and they're the greatest football team, in the world. So I go meet Adazio for the press conference, and he's like, "Yeah, we're coming. Like, we're coming. If we get invited, we're going to bring awesome football." And he's giving me like the pep talk. I'm like, I don't really need to hear it at this point. Martin Jarmon's like hugging him, like, "Yeah, this is great. Great job. Bowl eligible, all this kind of stuff." They fire him like not even like 7 hours later. So he gets fired. Then I get up at like 5 a.m. the next morning and catch my flight back to Shreveport, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, I'm going to be the chairman of the Boston College versus Marshall Independence Bowl, and nobody's going to come to this. Nobody's going to watch it. This is going to be miserable. And so I went to the SEC championship game the next week, and I got to know the ESPN kind of director of programming. And he's kind of like the Wizard of Oz when it comes to the bowl matchups. He basically determines, which teams are going where for their bowls, and they do it based on ratings and basically what's best for ESPN. And so we had heard all week that like Louisiana Tech was done deal. He was sending them to Dallas. Like, they're going to Dallas. They're playing in one of their Dallas games. We're going to get the leftover teams of Conference USA. And we actually had good conversations basically before that that Miami might be there for us to take. And I'm like, please, anybody other than Boston College. just please, just anything. So we get there the next morning. I get back to Shreveport, and we have our call with the ACC, and they basically said, yeah, this is where the teams are going to go. And of course, by the way, I'm always hoping for Louisville. Not
Of course.
I don't want you guys to come.
Obviously, yeah.
Like Rocco and I have had a lot of conversations about this over the years. When I come up for the Louisville games, Rocco would be like, I don't want to come to Shreveport. And I'm like, I don't want you guys to come to Shreveport either. I want you guys to be like higher than 6-6. Like it's a win for both of us. But in the event that you guys are 6-6, I'm going to be standing on the table asking for Louisville.
Rocco's like, thanks, Art.
Yeah, so we had multiple conversations about that, over the years. Same thing with Kenny Klein, because Kenny Klein would always be in the press box too, and Kenny would be like, I don't want to come to Freeport either. I'm like, I don't want you to. Mutual thing. So we were told like, hey, Miami's going to be there, for you to invite. Now that's the other thing too. Like, teams don't have to accept the invitation, but it's pretty bad look on the team if they don't. So we called Miami, they accept, and at this point, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. I'd made my pitch to the director of programming at the SEC championship game. That's like, please send us Louisiana Tech. Do us a favor. We won't ask for them for another like 4 or 5 year cycle, but we have the opportunity to have like a really good matchup. Because they're not a bad team. The stands will be full. It'll look really good for ESPN. I kind of made my pitch thinking, okay, at least I try. At least I can go back to the executive committee of the bowl and say I made my best pitch to ESPN. And then that morning of bowl announcement says, hey, ESPN's released Tech. They're yours if you want them. And so we jumped on that, and we had a really good matchup. And it's you learn a lot. You learn a lot going through the bowl selection process.
That's insane. That I've always been wondering like what the actual role of a bowl representative is, because it seems like they just like work only a few days a year. But actually hearing that is from you is pretty insightful. It seems like they have a much more like intensive and tedious job than I guess we think.
Well, so we're locally owned. Granted, like, the Fiesta Bowls and the Orange Bowls and all that stuff, they have much larger committees and different inter-rookies. A lot of those bowls have an executive director. We also have an executive director for the bowl, but we also have a volunteer group that I actually get to be the chairman. A lot of the bowls have the same thing. So like the chairman, it is the year that you're chairman, there are a lot, you sit in on a lot of meetings. You have to go to a lot of the media days. It's nice. I mean, it's awesome. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot involved. We also, the Independence Bowl, we put on a ton of events throughout the year. We do a big crawfish boil. We do a kids football camp clinic. We do a 5K. We do a tennis tournament. We do a lot of volunteer stuff that the chairman has to go through. But by the time when you get to the actual bowl festivity stuff, it's a lot of fun. I mean, you're going a million miles an hour, but it's really just for that 1 year. Now, the guy you see, the bowl representatives you see at the games, the quote unquote scouts, bowl scouts, half those guys know nothing about football. They know nothing about football. They may own the insurance company. They may donate a lot of money to that bowl, and they get to go on these scouting trips. And so I'd sit with them in the press box because we sit with each other. Matt, you probably know this. You see the bowl listing of where we are. We're always in the back row. And I try to talk football. I try to talk football with some of these guys. They couldn't tell you who the quarterback for Louisville was, and it's Lamar Jackson. I'm like, you not watch, football? So yeah, it's hit or miss. It's hit or miss on that. I will say that the year that the guy at the Orange Bowl in 2016, I've got to know him, through the years because he's also involved in the Lou Groza Award. He knows football, so he would have been good.
All right, quickly before we take up too much of your time, got a few rapid fire questions for you. I want to throw in my own first. How many times has Blanton Creque brought up the fact that he's 0.1% better than you as far as career field goal average?
Oh, he brought it up to me like within 5 minutes of us hanging out at the alumni event.
No.
Yeah, no, I love Blanton. He any kicker that plays for Petrino, you're kind of a kindred spirit to. He myself and John Wallace are good friends. And then, Blanton and I and Mason King as well. We've gotten to be great friends over the years. I owe them a steak dinner. They know that. So the next time,
how did that come about? How did that come about?
In 2019, we when I was up there for a game, it was actually the game that Blanton tore his ACL. I was at that game representing the bowl. We had met up the Friday before you guys had kind of y'all's walkthrough.
I think I remember seeing you out there that week at practice, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was there that Friday. And so Mason and Blanton, we spent probably like, an hour before just catching up and talking. And so I agreed that I was coming in that spring and we were going to go to a steak dinner, and then COVID happened. So I wasn't able to make the trip, but I owe that to them. They know that, and they keep bringing it up to me. But no, yeah, I was happy for Blanton. He was a phenomenal kicker for Louisville. And, he did bring that up to me, but he earned it. He was nails, for that team and for the teams that he was on. And so no, he great kicker, and great guy too. Phenomenal guy.
I'm sure you heard this a lot, Art, but it's very relieving hearing, like, knowing you have a kicker that's just going to go out there and just do his job. He's going to go out there, kick it straight through the uprights. You don't even have to worry about it. We score a touchdown, it's going in. We line up, anywhere between this range. Money, easy. Yeah. We're good. 3 points our way. So that was always relieving. Matt, go ahead with your rapid fire.
All right. So now we're ending on the show with, obviously, like Vin said, rapid fire questions. We're going to ask you a question. No thinking, just right off the top of your head, just give an answer. You ready?
This was very hard for Greg to do. Greg was given.
I listened. Yeah. I listened. Love Greg Brohm.
All right, kick it off with this. Which, if any, of your Louisville teammates thought they could kick or punt, but actually could not?
Harry thinks he can do it. Harry thinks he can do everything, and for the most part,
that doesn't shock me.
Most part he could, but yeah, Harry. If you ask Harry, could he play in the major leagues today in baseball, he would tell you absolutely.
When someone says Bobby Petrino, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Offensive savant. Those years that I played for him, I was on the scout team defense where we do walkthroughs on the road, and he and Paul Petrino would be talking about, okay, if this guy goes here, this guy's going to be wide open. It's going to be a touchdown. Or, hey, this first play of the game, you guys execute, it's going to be a touchdown. It happened all the time, especially, those early years in Conference USA in the Big East where we would just boat race teams. You'd see it happen. So, offensive savant. I mean, he's a great offensive coach. That's why I'm fascinated to see how how he does in College Station with Jimbo.
Favorite or most memorable kick of your
What's
career?
that?
Favorite or most memorable kick of your career?
The game winner against Rutgers. That was on senior night. We were down big in that game to be able to storm back and have a chance to win it in the last. It was one thing on my resume I didn't have at that point, and to be able to cap it off with the game winner on national television was awesome.
What opposing fan base had the most clever chants or things to yell at you just to kind of get you off of your comfort zone?
So I saw that Jacob sent me this question that's going to be asked, and the answer is Syracuse. And it was so when you're at the Carrier Dome, there's no space between the sideline and like basically the stands. And where my kicking net was, there was a group of probably 10 to 13-year-old kids that were just unmercifully just trying to heckle me. And they were terrible, because they would just say the same thing over and over and over again, but they were just relentless. They just would not shut up the entire game. You block out most everybody on the road. You kind of just block everybody out, but these kids were just right there at the railing and just would, just yell at me nonstop. And then, of course, they'd be like, hey, can we have a football? I'm like, no, you can't. You've been yelling at me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was your pre-game and pre-kick routine?
Pre-game was be terrified of the wind wherever we were playing. That would start actually in the morning in the hotel. I'd open up the blinds to the rim, and I'd look at the flags at the hotel, and I'd be like,
I used to laugh my ass off at Mason and Creque doing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're hoping the wind is on your side. Pre-game routine is just getting loose, trying to get as much kicks as you can before everybody else gets on the field and takes up all your space. And then pre-kick routine, offense would get the ball. when they get around midfield, I'd put my helmet on, go over to the net, kick 3 kicks, kind of watch on the scoreboard what was going on. And then, third down, they'd be yelling for PAT field goal, and I'd go stand and wait. And that'd be kind of the pre-kick routine. Then Dap and Harry up, obviously. And then after every kick, Breno Giacomini, who was our offensive lineman, he was, ginormous human being. He would always put his hands as high as he could, and I'd have to run and jump and give him a high five.
Thing you missed most about playing?
The locker room. Same thing probably everybody else says. You can't replicate that in any part of life. The locker room, being around the guys.
Whenever you come up to Louisville, what's the food joint that you have to hit up every time you come?
Man, they've put in so many new restaurants in that new Lou place around town. There's probably too many to name. When we were in college, our favorites, we used to love going to Sapporo for sushi.
Every player that comes on says Sapporo.
That's so wild that goes back to like 2000. Because like that, my class, like Javian Hawkins, if he were to come on, or John Grenard, who we just had on, was like,
no. It is. I don't know what it is, but like I think just everybody gets taken there at some point. That we'd always go there for sushi. Although this was gone by the time you were there, Vince. But there was the Cardinal Inn. It was a little like house restaurant right across the street from the stadium that we used to go. Me, Brian, and a lot of the baseball guys who were in business school with us. We'd go there for lunch like every other day in college, and it was awesome.
Okay, well, McAfee still does it, so I'm going to ask you: do you still get out and kick the ball around from time to time? I still got it. I could go nail one if they needed me to right now.
No, the answer is no. I tried probably in 2018. It was the last time that I tried to kick a football, and I kicked like a 35-yarder, and I made it, and I thought my leg was going to fall off the next day. Like those muscles don't work anymore. But Pat, speaking of Pat McAfee, he was at West Virginia when I was at Louisville, and we became really good friends. We're actually still good friends to this day. I actually ran into him at the Big 12 championship. I was at that for the Independence Bowl. We have a Big 12 partnership now, and Pat and I were reminiscing about those West Virginia Louisville days, or Louisville games back in the day, and he's just like he is on TV. That's how he is all the time. He's a blast to be around. It's been so fun watching his success. Obviously, rooted for him in the NFL. Tom McMahon, who was my special teams coach at Louisville in 2006, was the special teams coach for the Colts with he and Vinatieri. So we've had some good laughs about playing for Tom McMahon, but seeing his rise in the media world has been a lot of fun.
All right, we'll get you out here on this last rapid fire question. You take your 2006 Orange Bowl team, pit it up against the 2012 Sugar Bowl team. Who wins? 06 for sure. I actually think the best team that I played on was that 04 team at Louisville. I think the 04 team would beat the 06 team, and it wouldn't be close. And I actually think I love that 2013 Louisville team that went 12-1. Teddy was so awesome that year, and I actually think that he probably would have got some more Heisman love if Charlie would have let him kind of air it out towards the end of the year. No doubt. That 2013 Louisville team was they were really good. They're kind of slept on, I think, as an underrated team, because you go back and look at some of those games that year. They were just phenomenal. Well, Art, once again, thanks for coming on. This has been Art Carmody, Louisville kicker from 04 to 07. Art, thanks again for coming on, man.
Hey, no, thank you guys. Really enjoyed kind of going down memory lane with y'all. It's fun, and I look forward to all the episodes you guys will continue to put out. I'm gonna leave some 5-star reviews.
Once again, thanks for coming on.
All right, guys, thanks.